And we are live.
Talk now. I will talk now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Horror Syndicate Discourse. My name's Ray, and we've got the usual suspects plus two more tonight. We're going to be talking about Behind the Mask, the rise of Leslie Vernon, one badass movie that everybody should see. And if you haven't seen it by now, what's wrong with you? It's been out for 14 years. I think it's streaming on Amazon Prime.
It
You
is.
can buy a copy. You can buy a copy from Scream Factory,
You
which
got
is
no good reason. You should.
It's absolutely great. We've got Nathan and Angela both here tonight to talk to us about the
Yeah,
movie.
it kind of confuses me why a lot of horror fans haven't watched it because it's such a love letter to the genre
It
and
is.
the genre that everybody loves. It doesn't make any sense to me that I'll run into so many people at shows. I'm like, I never got around to that, or I've never heard of that. I'm like,
Well, hey, it's because of that. It's the gift that keeps on giving. You know, you
yeah,
have a pretty good chance of being able to play that card and brighten up somebody's evening.
Well, you got a new fan today. My son watched it with me. He's 11, and he thought it was the greatest thing ever. He's like, "This is so cool." Yeah.
One at a time. That's our motto.
Exactly. Well,
That's why we're such a slow burn.
maybe I shouldn't say this, but my 6-year-old daughter watched it too. But they both liked it. They, a lot.
17-year-old saw it for the first time just this last year.
And what did he
Marks?
think?
Yeah.
It was fine.
He can't tell you that he loves it because that's. I mean, you don't want to like be too cool with your parents, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah. He played it cool. He played it real cool.
Yeah.
You got to at that age. You got to. All right. Nate. Can you take over? I got to make some calls.
yeah,
All right.
I got it.
Thank you. I'll be back, guys.
All right.
Love you, buddy.
Oh, no, I just finished watching it it's only my second view. I think all these guys actually introduced me to this movie. But I really liked the first time I watched it, but I just watched it the second time with my fiance, and I really liked Leslie Vernon's character a lot. And the movie started, we meet your character finally, and I'm like, oh, you're gonna love him because he's a fun character. And we get inside the house, and he's talking about how he has the turtles and he doesn't feed them and they just haven't died. And I just looked at her and she's just mad. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. She's a huge animal lover.
We lost her at the turtle. Pretty early on too.
Yeah,
Maybe we should have saved the turtle scene for later.
he's always like, he's about 20 years younger than I am, so he's always like getting to these movies, and the first thing he asks is, "Do any animals die?" Because his girlfriend won't dig it, and like, yeah, there's a dog.
The bad thing is when we go to watch a movie that I've seen and it doesn't affect me, so I completely forget about it. Like I showed her American Psycho and I forgot all about the dog in the alleyway, and she was mad.
I would have forgotten that too.
Yeah.
So I'd like to talk to you guys about your how you got into this. I know both of you come from theater. I mean, Nathan, you went to Juilliard, and then you went to Vassar, and you were in a Horton Foote play, right? For Matthew Broderick and Sarah Michelle Gellar's understudy, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Back in '86, and I love Foote's work, so that's pretty sweet. And Nathan, you've done, and you can tell it. Like when I watch the audition tapes and everything, you tell you guys. I mean, it was like Foote, but you guys. I mean, you guys are. That's the thing I always think about this film is the both of you, especially. I mean, the whole movie's good, but I felt like I was seeing like 2-star performances. Like they were just so strong, both of you. And I was like, man, I love both of your performances so much. I think they're two of the best I've seen in the genre.
Thank you.
I'm not just kissing your ass. I just really believe that. And
real strong. And so, when you're an actor, you're just kind of working off of what's around you, and the material and that, and if you have strong stuff to respond to, stimuli around you, then it's great. You almost get out of your own way, because all you're doing is having to listen to somebody else who's just like really stimulating for you. Well, she's fantastically stimulating. She's just really good, and she brings a lot, and so it gives that much more. It just makes it effortless, really, and so, and that's something that the audition actually, filtered out really quick, was you can make a scene work with just about anybody, but there is something that's special about chemistry, when you really connect with somebody more than just on a working level, but also on a kind of, friend level, that kind of thing. And it was just easy from the beginning.
Yeah. And I would also add that, not every audition process kind of allows for that exploration of chemistry. A lot of times you get in a room and you're just kind of meant to kind of perform in a bubble, and it feels lonely. And this process was, thanks to Scotty, our director, and just the way that they allowed us to play and try multiple takes of a scene, and uh, it doesn't always happen that way. You're not always given the license to do that, or the space to do that, and we
Freedom,
really
yeah.
had that right from the beginning, which
Right.
was a gift, and it continued throughout production for sure.
Because Nathan, you were cast first, right? And you kind of read with the different actors that were coming in. Am I wrong on that?
No, not even. I think it was still pretty early on, and they were trying to see what they wanted to do with the character. I think what it came down to was me and another guy, and I think the other guy was basically, when you read the script, he's your typical slasher dude. He's 6 foot something, he's 200 and something pounds. He's just this wall of a man that you just wouldn't, you wouldn't defy him. And I think that's kind of how they saw it. And so when I came in doing a different thing, and I think it kind of opened up some exciting possibilities, but it also created a lot of confusion. And I think that it wasn't until I auditioned with Angela where they realized, oh, this can actually work. This can work in a way that we hadn't really expected it, to work, but it could work in a way that's even more fun, because we're not playing up the silliness of it in order to get humor out of it. We're playing it real, and we're making a real take on it, and the feelings are real, and so it's not going to get gut busting laughs from a large audience, but it's going to appeal to a lot of people who are into and appreciate kind of nuance and subtlety.
And that's definitely the feeling you get watching it. It's not like a parody necessarily, but it's something that homages the genre completely.
Yeah, he's a wild character, like I said, but Angela's so grounded and real through the whole time. But then there's those little things that you do, Nathan, where those looks, like if Ben or Britton says something, you kind of give them those side looks, like you got, like you don't like them, or and that, to show that there's still some menace in this guy, even though he's so funny and so charismatic and likable.
Yeah, sometimes I didn't even have to do acting.
Yeah.
So, Angela, you were saying Scott kind of gave you guys free reins, like multiple takes and stuff. Like, how long was the production altogether?
I mean, see, the irony there is that our production schedule was actually, we had a lot to do and not a lot of time in which to do it.
Right.
So it's not like we really had the luxury of time. But what we did have in Scott as a director is like a playmate in the sandbox. So he, he didn't often give a lot of direction straight out of the gate, which allowed us to kind of feel it out, say it out loud, see what happened, and then kind of play from there. And his joy for the process was infectious all the way through. So he just enjoyed it so friggin' much that it
Almost like he was going on the ride with you at the
yeah,
same
it
time.
kind of bubbled over, and and that playfulness kind of carried us through. And just a little tiny love note to Nathan Baesel as an actor. He is someone who I I never knew what he was going to do performance wise, but I also never knew what he was going to do in terms of like choreography, movement, props. It was a really sort of exciting and just playful process. I loved it. It's rare, and it's a gift. And
What she said.
Yeah, I love the hell out of the performances, and again, that chemistry, it just shows on screen. You two just made such a great match, and Scott, I totally get it, because Scott is just like this endless amount of energy. It seems this from the time I was with him, where I remember we went to Waffle House, you, me, and Nate, and the guys from Fright Rags at Horror Hound, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning,
Awful House.
and the Raid, the Redemption came out that day, and Scott's like, we should go see that.
Oh, that's a beautiful movie.
I'm like, Scott, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and we got to be at the convention at 10 o'clock in the morning. And he's like, and he just was going on.
I didn't even think it was a good idea to hit the Waffle House. Is that ever a good idea?
word no.
But, I was ready to wrap it up, and he's just starting. Yeah, the dude's a dynamo, and we were definitely feeding off of his energy. The final day of shooting was in the library in downtown Portland, and he was a zombie. He was a zombie because on top of only getting 3 to 4 hours sleep a night, if that much, he was totally worn down physically, and he was sick. He had a cold, and he was just he was completely useless. He was completely useless, but he was still going. He was still feeding off of the excitement of the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, he was I know we did when we did that Q&A, I think it was David had said that or maybe it was you, Angela, said that he has a good way of talking you into doing things that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Because I think I tried to tell him I didn't want to do that comic book. I don't know how many times. I had just started production on a movie. I was like, I don't have the time, and they're not going to make any money. I was talking about it. He goes, you sound like my producer.
They just made $70 off me. I don't want to talk about not making money.
There you go.
But I say he did. He goes, I want you to do it. I'm like, and he did. Like, he does have a way of getting you to say yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's not like manipulative in like a shady way. It's because of like a deep belief in you and like a joy in what he's asking you to do. So it never feels, I was never sorry. I don't know about you, Nathan, but I like anything that I ever did that Scotty was like, do it. And I was like, I don't know. I never afterwards was like, that was a bad call. I was always like, oh my gosh, I didn't think I could, or I didn't think it would work, or I just didn't want to. And I'm the better for it. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Oh God, we got people in the comments. They're saying the comics aren't enough and they want a sequel.
Huh?
They said the comics aren't enough and they want a sequel.
Oh yeah, that was the fun thing about doing that comic that I killed myself making. As soon as it came out, we wanted the movie. I was like, okay. But I mean, the thing is, it's like, they wanted the movie. They wanted to make the movie. They tried to make the movie. Unfortunately,
it's a placeholder. It's now in the canon, and it's going to tide people over for a little while, however much longer.
And you know what, Nathan Baesel said something a while ago that I think is so right and true about the comic that you made, which is so incredibly gorgeous, and I love it so much. But it's like stretching this story and these characters into multiple forms of communicating and bringing it to people. And I think that's amazing. And personally, I feel like we're in step with these characters still. Like we never really lost that sense of momentum and being interested in what they're doing and kind of where they are and you know, so I sort of I just see it as like an expansion of, you know, the characters and the genre, you know, in just multiple media and forms of expression.
And I think, you know, we don't have to, as the comic showed so well, we don't have to be tied to one medium or another. You know, we don't have to make a sequel film. You know, there's a lot more to be said for, you know, biting off less than you can chew by, you know, doing web series, you know, projects or you know, even TV show format. You know, it's a lot more producible, and you can be a lot more nimble with a, you know, smaller budget. So that's
Sure.
stuff that we're exploring.
I mean, and plus TV shows is where it's at right now, anyways. I mean, I feel like they make way more money off TV shows than movies nowadays, unless you're a ginormous blockbuster.
Right.
But I mean, I'm happy. I was happy to do it because of the David's script was so strong. It was just as strong as the first one, I think, and had so many nice little additions. And it made. I mean, you read it and it just makes you laugh. And I can hear you guys saying those words and performing those scenes as I'm reading it and drawing it. And you know, you get more of Robert's character, you get more of Scott's character, you get more of Ben's character, and it's a shame, but yeah, at least it's there for people to enjoy. And I think that's what Scott was really. He like, look, we've exhausted this. We just want to get it out and get it to the people.
No, exactly. It needed to be done at the time that it was done because, you know, as you can see by reading it, you know, it's time sensitive. You know, the world that it conceived of to further the behind the mask storyline. It had a freshness, a sell by date, you know, and so it needed to, in order to be the story that it was, it needed to be done and produced right then, and the comic allowed for that to happen. You know, the comic allowed for that movie to get made. Our next movie, our sequel, our proper sequel, it won't be that story. It'll be another story, and it'll be a story that's, you know, contemporary. But that allowed us to keep the ball rolling on the story.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people, a lot of things people don't understand is like they think, yes, they have the comic book, they'd rather have the movie, but you'd rather have one than not the other. That's just like we had Vince from Never Hike Alone on last show, and he was talking about if his next project doesn't get funded, then people need to still know the story, so he'll just do a comic book series. You'd rather know the story than not know it and keep questioning it.
It's a perfect medium, especially for horror, for slasher. I mean, the comic books is the perfect translation of a filmic story, you know, because the film is already conceiving a world that is very visual and visually based, and, you know, the tropes, they kind of track from one to the other for the most part. So it's a kind of a no-brainer telling the story of the story of horror through, you know, comic book form.
Yeah, I mean, just as a fan, I just couldn't wait to read it, even though I knew it wasn't getting made. Because I remember it at Night at Waffle House. Christy Jett.
The artwork was bullshit.
It's
Artwork
awful.
was bullshit.
That's why I tell everybody, don't mind my art. David's go for David's script and his writing because he's brilliant. But I remember at that Night at Waffle House, Christy Jett was telling me how funny it was, and I was like, God, I want to read it, you know. And it is. I just reread it just before the show, just because I hadn't looked at it in about a year, and just so many great little lines and moments. I think my favorite is where Leslie's talking about his buddy Vic down in New Orleans, Victor Crowley. You say he's got.
Yeah, we got a little nod of the hat, and they gave us one too. So
it's one thing I love about the original movie, just all the subtle nuances and the Easter eggs you get during that movie. seeing
And-
Kane Hodder walking into the nightmare, you know, the Elm Street house. Like, it's just, I love it.
I'm proud of that it's a movie that stands up to multiple viewings. If you want to
Mhm.
put in the work, you want to put in the time, and you can pick up more each time you watch a scene play out. That's pretty cool. It's not often that you can do a movie that somebody's like, let's throw that one on again. You know, most of them are like, boy, I guess I'm, you know, I can say I did that one.
But
Yeah.
you guys also did like a, it was a POV film, but those were really popular at that time. But the way you guys did it, you know, it's kind of like Roadhouse meets Road Rules. You know, this is that. Like the way it was done was very fresh and very original,
Yeah.
because point of view films were very popular around the time the movie came out.
I agree, because I'm not a fan of POV movies at all.
But it's a, I mean, it's supposed to be a legitimate documentary. With,
Yeah.
it's a mockumentary, which is
Right.
really cool about it. And like I said, that was so many other things were that of that time. But yeah, it was. When I saw it, I thought it was a great follow up to Scream. I thought it was along that same lines of Scream was a love letter to the slasher genre, and this was the next one. Even before like Cabin in the Woods got that kind of
Mhm.
credit as well, more than this one, but I enjoyed this a whole lot more than that. And you could just tell in the script that David is a fan of it, knows like the little things that you don't pick up the first time. And Scott, I know there's a lot of The Shining in there because he's a big Shining fan, and there's all kinds of things like that. And just the little lines and the deliveries that maybe if you're not really listening, especially with the way you do your timing, Nathan, and so, like the turtle line, for instance, little suckers won't die. I mean, you're not expecting that line to come out in
And
that
it's just
sequence.
casual dialogue for him.
Or and just and then like this highly intellectual talk, and then it's girl parts. It's just these funny little lines that make you laugh. And like you said, repetitive viewing is a reward, because it does, you miss things, or you notice things more. It's yeah, I would encourage anybody, if anybody's watching, to go watch the film and read the comic, because the comic does have, it's a great continuation. And unfortunately, we lost Scott Wilson, and I'd like to talk to you guys about him, because he's one of my favorite actors, and I absolutely loved him as Eugene. I thought he was so good in this film. Like just that scene where he's
I was
talking
gonna
about
say that.
hacks and chopping up the carrots, and I mean, there's just something about.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I wanted to talk about him too.
Yeah, I want you. Could y'all share about Scott working with him?
I don't know where to start. He was such a fantastic guy, and presence, and man.
Everybody knows him from the guy from Walking Dead. Like
Right.
the first time I saw him was in Cold Blood, and he was 25 years old. Like a fucking amazing movie. Like he's an amazing actor.
I think what you just brought up, when you just brought up The Walking Dead and then In Cold Blood, and then I thought of Behind the Mask, and I thought of a body of work that sort of encompassed like these small indie films and these huge budget crazy productions. And Scott brought the same actor to every project. He brought the same generosity, he brought the same integrity, he brought the same intelligence, and he brought the same beautiful spirit. And even, I mean, working on a movie like ours with a bunch of kids and a first-time director in the middle of, Portland, Oregon, and suburbs around Portland, I mean, he loved the material. He was very vocal about loving it, and he just, and then to watch him on The Walking Dead and be like, he was in our movie and he was amazing, you know, and he wasn't, I mean, he wasn't like, oh, I'm just doing this tiny nothing film. He treated it like he was, you know, like he was performing in a worthy project with people whom he respected.
His
And
career arc was insane. Was
yeah,
just insane for not a marquee actor, but for a guy who, as far as actors are concerned, his career, you couldn't dream of a better career where you're working from in cold blood, where you got just a really great meaty material, a classic movie, a movie that's going to stand the test of time. He gets that under his belt, right off the bat, and then launches into a career that for the next 3-4 decades he's doing every single kind of project, budget wise, acting range wise, and he's finishing it off with a great paying, highly recognizable national, at one point it was the number one, TV show in America, maybe more than one season. And he's in it and he's right in the middle of it, and I mean, you just couldn't, as an actor, dream of a more ideal career. And he had it. And he brought that experience to Behind the Mask because he was ready to work on day one. He was a professional. He showed up ready to work. And, fortunately for him, he brings so much of who he is, his heart and his intellect and everything like that. He brings that to his acting. So he's just creating an environment around him of, this is your textbook example of what a professional actor is. Do likewise,
Yeah.
Did he ever have any sit downs with you, like just discussing like what you need to do in this scene or in that scene or anything like that?
No, we talked to the extent that, we were trying different things and being, finding things, being playful, but he never gave, well, son, if you, you do it my way, I guarantee you, it's going to get you better. He was never like that. He was just like, hey, you got hired to do your thing, kid. And, that was great. But afterward, life wise, off the set, he was more than willing to talk about, personal things, and he gave great guidance, and I went to him for guidance and he provided it. He was always more than willing to and happy to. His door was open, and he invited me several times, and I kicked myself for not taking him up on it. Lunch dates or coffee dates or whatever, those little appointments that slip through the cracks. But
speaking about Scott Glosserman's sort of boundless energy, I think the last time that we all talked to Scott Wilson, we were together, Nath, remember? We were doing like I think it was at Dark Delicacies, we were doing a signing, and we had done a reading of the sequel script together. And then we were out kind of at dinner, and it kind of got late, and we just called Scott on speakerphone. I think Stevie called him, and he could not have been kinder. And we were like, maybe we had had a few drinks. We were sort of yelling in the middle of the street. And he didn't hang up the phone. He was just like, oh man, you guys, that sounds great. Like, let me think about it. I don't know if it's going to work tonight. And we were like, oh my God, come on, you got to be there.
The phone. If you guys were calling me, are you kidding?
Bye. Lose my number. Just like this.
No, he took the call.
Generous guy.
Yeah.
And with The Walking Dead, it's great that he got, for a lot of people, that was their introduction to him in many ways, and especially a new generation. So now he'll be Herschel for so many people, but hopefully they can go to see In Cold Blood and Behind the Mask and The Ninth Configuration and all these great films that people don't even know about. If anybody out there is a horror fan, you haven't seen The Ninth Configuration, he's phenomenal in it. It's William Peter Blatty, the Exorcist writer, and he's incredible in it, as he's always, as you said, everything he did. And it was a pleasure to get to draw him in the comic, and I was able to give him the first splash page, his reveal, the original art, probably 6 months before he passed at a show. So yeah, I mean, we lost a great guy there, and even the little moments I was with him, I could tell what you're talking about, the way he is, the way he carried himself, the way you see just total heart. And every time you see him on film, that dedication, no matter the size of the film, the role, he just always stood out as a real presence. I know, Nathan, you've got to jump off. I always like to ask everybody, the actor guests, because a lot of horror fans don't see everything. Is there something that you've done in your career that you'd like point people in directions? Hey, check that out, or you might dig this, or
Something that I've done?
yeah, something out there on television or film, or that maybe a lot of these fans of Leslie Vernon maybe haven't experienced yet. That
Well, I did a TV series called Invasion, and that was a great opportunity,
Awesome.
and that was a good show. And
A great show.
for a 1 hour drama, network drama, it was, took some chances, and yeah, so it was definitely unconventional, and I appreciated it because of that. I thought there was a lot of great work that went into it, and Sean Cassidy was the executive director and head writer, and it was really interesting climbing in that dude's brain for a season.
cool. I haven't seen it. I'm going to check it out now. That's why I asked. But again, thank you for taking time to come on and talk to us. And yeah, it's been about 8 years since I saw you, so it's good to see you again.
Has it been that long? Wow.
Yeah, it's 2012. It was yeah, you were. I think you guys were doing maybe the crowdfunding for the sequel. I think at that time. And I had just done some artwork with Christy Jett. It brought me in to help and try to help raise money. And yeah, I had a good time with you. And I know the book signing we did in LA, you had an emergency. I think you couldn't make it at Dark Delicacies, the comic signing. And they did a screening too, I think, for when they did the Scream Factory signing or videos.
Right.
So I was sad to miss you then, but it's good to see you today and get a chance to talk to you.
Good to see you. Thanks as always for your work on the comic. It's brilliant. And I just talked to a guy a couple weeks ago whose two things are, it's like a donut and chocolate. His comic books and his horror films. And I kind of blew his mind, not a little bit, a lot bit, when I told him that there is a point in the space-time continuum where these two do intersect, and his love for Behind the Mask and his love for comic books could be satisfied in one. Yeah, he said he was jumping on the website right after we got done with our conversation so that he could buy the comics, and I just know that heaven, a little piece of heaven, was served up that day.
Well, it was a pleasure to draw you as well, and to, in some way, carry on Leslie, and I look really forward. I know a lot of people do, to the day you get to play him again.
I'm still holding out hope that it's going to happen.
It's one of my favorite film characters, honestly. I think you just killed it, and everybody please see it. It's good, and Nathan deserves your 90 minutes because he acted his ass off in that.
It's a fun movie. It's becoming one of those movies for me that whenever I go to watch it again, I get to the part where I'm like, oh, this is my favorite part. Oh, this part's coming. Like, I'm waiting for those moments, because like my favorite moments are really stupid, and it's the amount of cardio you have to do because you got to run like a freaking gazelle. I love that.
It's the little moments. Yeah. It's the little things in that movie. And I'm still holding out hope that we will have another Leslie Vernon.
Well, still early stages of, but I'm writing something myself just to keep myself busy during these crazy COVID times and to exercise my writerly muscles. But yeah, I'm working on things in a kind of webisodic format and seeing if it's got any legs to it. But something that's probably a little more bite-sized than a movie sequel would be a lot easier to execute. And so I think it's an idea that's got some legs to it.
And plus
That could be
crowdfunding.
done.
Plus crowdfunding is way easier now than 2012. Everybody
think,
no name has Kickstarter and Indiegogo.
Right.
And with what's going on right now, I mean, just having Leslie and Taylor and characters like that in a Zoom meeting could work and wouldn't cost anything. So that's doable because of the nature of Leslie Vernon was, a documentary. It's not. You don't need big cinema cameras and everything to pull it off.
We're commenting on the media and whatever the current media is, and so Zoom is Zoom's what everybody's using. So wouldn't that be a vital part of the media as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Nate, I'll let you go. But again, thank you, sir.
Yep.
Good to see you again.
Pleasure.
Nice to meet you all. And Angela, love you. Love you. These are birds. These are. It's just, they don't stop.
They're
The
gonna
birds just
come to
keep
roost
on.
the basil plant, honey. It's perfect. they're basil.
Love you.
No.
Bye.
Now we can talk bad about him, right? I'm just joking.
Yeah.
Finally, that is lost. Oh my god. Kidding. Totally kidding.
So, Angela,
Hi.
I guess the first. Hi, how you doing? I missed that time. I got I feel lucky I got to hang out with you guys because that was the first time we met, and I had a blast with you guys that weekend. Thank you to Russ Trout for actually bringing me out there because I wasn't gonna make it, and he drove me around LA all weekend. But I have such great memories hanging out with you, and I'm gonna work with you one day. I know I'm going. I know once I go SAG, to the SAG project. Yeah.
Yes.
But I was watching, like my introduction to you is probably most people's introduction was Home Alone. It's
Home Alone.
Evan McAllister's sister. And Heartbreak Hotel. I'd seen that, but I didn't, totally make that connection until David brought it up at that signing at Dark Delicacies.
Yeah.
But I also saw today. I was looking more into your career, and I don't remember the show, but the show that you were on in '94 was Phenom.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm gonna get a phone now. Sorry, I'm on the phone.
I thought you had an episode of Phenom queued up. I was like,
oh yeah, and now I'll roll it. Yeah. Well, I hadn't. I said, why don't I not? I mean, Judith Light was your
Sounded
mom
like
on the
Carpenter,
show, and
right.
For horror fans out there, Ashley Johnson of Last of Us was your little sister.
That's
Little
right.
Brett's sister, and William Devane.
Yeah.
And I forget the actor's name who was in High Fidelity. He played your brother.
Baesel.
Yeah.
Todd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I watched an episode of that today. It's on. Some of them are on YouTube.
You're
but I with your performance as Taylor, and I mean it. I think it's the horror, especially the slasher genre. And I don't want to knock anything, but like you don't get actors of your caliber in this genre very often, and you are a powerhouse actress. I mean, there's something about the way you portray Taylor, this confidence, this eagerness to get the story. I mean, she's a strong young woman, but when you find out that you're his target, the vulnerability that you show, I mean, it's such a
very
wonderful,
believable.
Yeah, it's such a very wonderful layered performance. again, that's why I keep harping on people. Like, you all are missing out if you haven't seen this thing, because these are, I said, when I saw it, these people are going to be stars, big stars. Because like Nathan reminded me of, like, he had, like, it's funny, I didn't mention it when he was on, but I remember when we went to, before I met him, there was something Jim Carrey I like about him in as Leslie. And I remember when we were driving back to the hotel,
I could see that.
he started doing imitations of Dumb and Dumber of Jim Carrey. And it was just, I was like, it was a weird world where I'm like, I've been thinking you remind me of Jim, and here you are doing Jim in the front seat. But like, there is that presence and that comic timing, and I mean, the guy's so talented, and you are, and this great marriage between the two of you.
That's sweet of you to say.
Yeah.
I can see the Jim Carrey comparison 100%. I had never thought of it particularly on my own, but Jim Carrey is one of my favorites because, you know, he'll turn in a performance like Dumb and Dumber, and then he'll turn in a performance like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Like, dude,
Right.
this guy has a deep, like, sense of grief and emotion, and he's also one of the funniest people on the planet. So, and Nathan for sure has that marriage of those two things, like, operating at all times. So, yeah, I
was kind of shocked when I met Nathan how quiet and calm he was. He wasn't anything like Leslie. I didn't, maybe you hung out with him more, but I just remember Scott was the one who was almost more like Leslie than Nathan was.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I think some of the most sort of comedic, you know, the actors with the comedic chops are often, like, kind of quiet in real life. Yeah. That's been my experience anyway. And Nathan definitely, you know, fits that bill. And when we were on set, I mean, he was quiet the way you described Nathan. He was, you know, and particularly when we would be shooting sequences when he was Leslie Vernon, we really didn't see him much or talk to him much. He would kind of be like, he'd have his music on. He'd be kind of off by himself. Not in that annoying, like, actorly way, but just in the way where he was, you know, he was just kind of honoring the moment and the character, and you know, taking space for himself. But yeah, he was, you know, he definitely, he's quiet, and his humor in real life comes out, you know, kind of surprising. It surprises you, like, it's quiet humor. But that's what makes his performance all the more, I think, amazing, because you realize that that's, you know, that's a stretch. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a very, I could tell just from watching him in the behind the scenes footage or working in the rehearsal or the audition process, and just being around him, that he just, maybe a heavy thinker, like a lot of artists, observational, very takes it very, very serious, like the craft, very, very.
Yeah, well, he's very intelligent, and I think I would say, and this is a tribute to David Stevie's writing. It's a tribute to Scott Glosserman's casting and directing. I mean, everyone in that film is a thinking actor. Everyone in that movie, with a few exceptions, but they're not anybody that's, well, that was such a shitty thing to say. I'm sorry. You know what I mean, though. Like, I'm gonna move past that. Please forgive me. Oh my gosh. This is live. Okay.
I'm sure Robert Englund will forgive you.
Oh man.
Yeah, Robert Englund watches our podcast. You're funny.
Sitting at home right now, like, tweeting angrily about but you know, that I really do feel that group of people, you know, Nathan included, you know, everybody approached the material I think with a lot of respect and curiosity and intelligence. So, and for me personally, not having a lot of experience in the horror genre, either as an actor, this is my first and only horror film, but as as a fan, I'm sort of wimpy about horror. I didn't have a huge horror film background, even as as an audience member, as a fan, before Behind the Mask. So for me, and I think for all of us, we're looking at this as a story, with real people, and kind of approaching it the way that you would approach any smart, well-written material. And I think that and Scott encouraged that, and David's writing certainly did. And so I feel really proud of that, and proud of all of my castmates, for bringing that to the table every day. Ben and Britton are some of the funniest dudes I've ever met. They're smart comics, and they've got a lot of heart and great energy. And and again, I mean, a lot of the material, we had a strong script to begin with, but a lot of that stuff is just them sort of riffing, or Nathan riffing. Like, some of the best lines in the movie kind of came from that playfulness that we were talking about earlier, that Scott kind of encouraged and participated in. And just everybody kind of caring a lot, and investing a lot, in the movie, and making it good.
Yeah, like I didn't get to hang out with Britton very much when I was at that, because he wasn't there at the comic signing. He came at the screening, but I did get to hang out with Ben. And you're right, Ben is hilarious. Ben is funny as hell, and I mean, just quick witted as they come. Right. And I was like, wow, this guy. He was so funny. I'm like, I wish his part had been bigger in the first movie. I wish he'd had more.
So did Ben. Ben wished his part was bigger.
Oh, I'm sure he did too, because he's a super talented guy. And
we joked all the time with Ben, because you guys know the earlier part of the film, you never see their face, either Ben or Britton. Yeah. And Ben had a real big problem with that. He did not like that at all, and he would kind of cheat in toward camera, and Scott would be like, "We see you, Ben," and he'd be like, "Oh, what? Oh, you see? Oh, sorry." And we'd be like, "Dude, no, like you're turning in, you're aware of what's happening." We'd be like, "Zero pace face, no pace face, get out of there." But yeah, he's hilarious. And Britton is such a sweetheart, and so funny. And the two of them together are great foils for one another. And just a lot of intelligence on this movie set. Ben and Scott actually both went to UPenn. I don't know if they were friends while they're there, or if I feel like they knew each other maybe in college. But anyway, not to name drop UPenn, but there was just a kind of funny academic, nerdy awesomeness, on that set.
Yeah, I remember Ben talking about being kind of friends with Scott. Like, he talked about going to his house and Justin Bieber being Scott's neighbor. Oh, yeah. and wanting to play basketball or something.
Yeah. Yes, I heard that too.
So when people ask me what's your favorite role that Robert Englund's played other than Freddy, it's always as Halloran in this movie. I love that he made the choice to not play Scott's part and to play the Donald Pleasance archetype type character, and I think he's really great in it. And that's another shame about the sequel, is he gets a whole lot more to do in the comic version. But what was it like working with Robert?
It was amazing. I could listen to him talk forever. He's an amazing storyteller in real life. And when you actually sit down with him and you kind of recognize the deep experience that he brings to this, you know, all those years, you know, working within this genre, and then when you find out that he's actually a classically trained actor himself, and you know, you again get a sense of just the brilliant mind in there. I mean, it was amazing. He was great, and you know, the same way that Scott Wilson brought like all of his heart and integrity to this film, so too did Robert. I mean, you know, we never felt like he was this big famous star doing this stupid little movie. You know, he came
didn't phone it in.
set. Yeah, he came every day to set and he was all in. He was really invested in the part, loved the script. You know, he and Nathan would have these kind of heart to hearts, and he would share little tidbits about, you know, just real technical horror stuff, like, you know, kind of amazing things that you'd never know or think of, like, oh, if you angle the scythe this way, it'll catch the light in a really creepy cool way, or if you know, turn your face that way at the last second, like just all these real technical cool things. And he just you know, he he brought that kind of instructiveness, but never in like a condescending, you know, annoying way. It was in like a really collaborative, cool way. I loved working with him. Loved it.
Yeah, a very mentor, or not mentor, but just a supportive kind of like, hey, I've done this, you know.
Yeah.
And whenever you listen to Robert talk about playing Freddy, he talks about all those little details of how I'm going to move my neck this way, or I'm going to stand this way, or I'm going to move the glove. You've spent hours messing with that glove, so yeah, he
Right.
knows how it's going to read on camera, and like what his shadow can do, and what his silhouette can do, and what all these. So I could totally see him going to Nathan and saying, hey, you know. And
Yeah.
Nathan has in the film, Scott and Nathan. I don't know the cinematographer and all that. There are some moments where they are working with iconic poses and stances and movement. And that's one thing about Leslie. I love Leslie's design. I love the mask. I love the little boy character, the boy.
Yeah.
It was very unique. Do we have any questions, Keith, in the
In the
comments? I know we
comments.
haven't really. Is it all about? I wish we didn't get that shitty comic and we got the movie.
Well, at the beginning it was a lot of hellos to both of you. There was just a
Oh,
lot. I didn't want to go through and read every single one. There's just so many names and people.
now it's like, bring back Leslie Vernon. Why are we talking so much this game?
Well, one comment I found funny was, where'd it go? Oh, Russ Trout said, which made Ben's face not being on the cover of the Scream Factory release all the more funny.
Yes, Russ, absolutely.
And of course, yeah, there's a lot of, would you be down to make another one? Is there going to be another one?
Yeah. I would 100% be down to make another one. I do think that, I mean, Nathan kind of teased out that idea of like, you know, something that he's been writing, and he's been sending me stuff, and we've been kind of talking back and forth. And I would hope and, you know, just throw out there that maybe something will come of what Nathan's kind of working on. As he said, it's not a film. It's more of like an episodic type of feel.
Yeah.
But
Which could still be very effective.
totally, yeah.
Especially right now with everything with Netflix and Hulu, like the idea of having something like that on a weekly basis, I would be all over that.
Well, plus it's something that could possibly get picked up. I mean, especially with Shudder now, and
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the best thing about the behind the mask is not the horror part of it. It's the relationship. It's the conversation. It's the dialogue.
Hmm.
It's a
intellect,
it's
like.
almost a mumblecore movie, really, and it's because that was part of the like, as much as I enjoyed drawing the comic, it was also hard because comics usually have action and things going, and it's like most of this is just conversation.
Right.
To just draw people sitting around talking is not usually a entertaining comic. For as a film, at least you got the performances from the actors and their voice and their body language and things, which you can't capture in a comic.
Right.
So we do have a
So
couple other comments. Thomas Rogers asked, "Would Angela be down for another pop and rock horror convention?"
Oh, Tom, of course. It's one of my favorite cons, of course.
And then Hillary Joe said, "Rights-wise, could it be something that can go forward, or would there have to be sign-offs?"
You mean
I guess they
for
mean if you did an episodic like Leslie
like
Vernon
oh,
rights-wise.
yeah. That's a good question. I believe that Scott Glosserman now owns, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure he does, and because we had a great working relationship and we love each other so much and would love to work together again, I feel like he would. I would be really surprised if he wasn't totally. Uh, yeah, yeah, exactly.
Let's see. Don't forget the OTP in the fandom that hit hard. I'm not sure what that means. um, and then someone asked if you've ever heard of Scares That Care. I've heard of that, but I'm not sure what it is.
I am not sure what it is.
That's
I
that's one of our buddies, Lombardo. He is a.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It's up in New Jersey,
Oh,
and,
cool.
Yeah, they
and
do. It's a horror
Kane.
communities charity.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Kane Hodder's a big proponent for that too because of things he's been with.
Well,
Yeah,
I would love to hear more about it for sure.
it's a horror convention, but it's that there's it's all
Charity
it's
based.
not for profit,
Nice. Amazing.
and the main proponent is burn victims.
Aha. Got it.
Is there any like favorite lines or dialogues or just scenes that you did that come to mind, or like what was the funnest or most difficult or anything of that
Um,
nature?
yeah, I mean,
Because some people forget about how physical it is to make a movie.
yeah.
And
I, I mean, I feel like they're different things for different moods. I mean,
mm-hmm,
some of the early stuff we shot when we were kind of um like finding our groove, some of those early interview scenes, the first scenes at Leslie's house where he's kind of messing with us and we're like,
mm-hmm,
there he is. Like that was really fun to shoot because it felt kind of um it, it it required some choreography, so there was like a person in the window up there like ruffling the curtain, and it was timing, and it was fun. The in the outtakes, that walk run stuff that didn't make it into the film, I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, uh when he's like when I mean, I think there's maybe a hint of it, but we did a whole like we did a whole test of when he's chasing Taylor and she's running, and when she turns around to look, he's walking, and then when she turns back and is running, he like books it, so it just every time you look back they're closer but they look like they're walking. That was really fun and energetic. That was like before we even started shooting. We were just kind of getting to know each other and sort of doing location scouting and you know, like the whole movie is my favorite. I know that's sort of a cop-out answer, but
that's a good thing though. At least you can't. At least you have more good memories than bad memories making a film.
Yeah, and then I'll tell one thing that you know, maybe will be funny for people listening. So it when the barn is burning and I have to throw the axe handle through that window, I could not get that dang thing to go in. And the thing is burning, right? So there's fire, and they're like, you just have to throw this in there, and I could not do it. And it kept, like, it was really pathetic because I'd hurl it with all my might, and it would hit the side and like bounce off, like wah wah, and like finally, like all the guys were like mansplaining it to me, like they were like, you gotta like, and they were like trying to coach me, and I was getting really annoyed. I was like, just stop, like
it's not a damn football.
I don't throw things normally.
Fall in the wrist, it's the elbow, you gotta. And finally I got it on the last one, and I was like, get me the F out of here, man, I just need to take a look. I'm done.
So you were talking about how like loose they were with dialogue and stuff. Is there any like lines that you had that you made your own?
There was a line that that Scott wanted to cut. Scott Glosserman wanted to cut it, and it comes when like stuff is really heating up toward the end, and we're kind of putting together like, oh, the bodies are going to be there, oh, you know, because he's told us, like, you know, everything that's going to happen, and we're in the barn. I'm trying to think. I confess it's been a little while since I've seen the movie, and I feel like we were running from Leslie, and then Doc Halloran shows up right at that moment and kind of confronts Leslie and buys us a little bit of time. And so we're running, and the camera's here, and we look back and we see Doc, like, you know, stop Leslie and confront him. And I had a line that was, "Hiya, Doc." Like, oh, there you are. I knew you would be there. And we kind of did it, and I wasn't feeling it at first. Like, it felt kind of, it didn't really feel organic, and I was having trouble. I think the truth is that I was having trouble with it, and so I got mad at it instead of being like, how can I make this work? I was just like, it's not working. And Scotty, who was always down to, you know, like, you know, listen to us as actors, was like, oh, we'll cut it, it's okay, I don't mind. And Stevie was like, yeah, I don't mind, we can cut it. And then I was like, wait, no, because this is the whole thing, is like, is this kind of, you know, archetypal, like, you know, play within a play kind of like thing. And I was like, no, I think we need it. And so I did a 180, and I was like, no, we shouldn't cut it. We need it, and I need to make it work. And I feel like I kind of made friends with it in the end. I'm not saying it was like, you know, a brilliant performance by any means, but like, at least I felt like I got it in there, and it was good that it was there, because it was a little breath of like seeing Taylor kind of like, oh yeah, this is, I see your game, like, yep, it's all happening, yep. So that was, yeah, that was one line that was like troubling me, and that I, in the end, I kind of turned around and fought for, and I feel like I made friends with.
And it made it into the sequel too. I was like, I saw it in the comic where you first see Halloran. In the comic, you just said, "Hiya, Doc."
Yeah, Doc.
like again, like you said, like, I knew you'd be here. It's no big deal. Like, hey, how you doing? I was like, "Hiya, Doc." Yeah. It's and that's one thing I love. I don't know how many people have read the comic, but he, like, Taylor is like doing a To Catch a Predator type television show where she's catching slasher wannabes, and it's just a brilliant. And again, like Nathan was saying, it was timely. Like, when he wrote it, To Catch a Predator was out there, and it was a brilliant little touch because this guy breaks into the house, you're following him, and he's just screwing up constantly, just messing up, and then he's just about to kill. All of a sudden, lights come on, they all pull the guns out. It's all staged, and here's Taylor with her microphone. Hey, what are you doing? Why'd you come in the window? You thought you were gonna do it. I was like, gosh, it was just so good. So David, like you said, was he on set a lot? 'Cause you keep talking about it. I know a lot of writers aren't, but was he pretty much part of the production with more than normal?
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely there. There were certain scenes that he wanted to be there. One of them was the scene in the hayloft where Taylor kind of puts it together that it's her, and that she's the one. And I think part of the reason was that he wanted to hear how that was playing, how that was landing. He was doing rewrites in real time, like throughout production. He spent, I think, the first like week or two with us, and he would write, he would get notes from Scott and write, and then we would get rewrites for the following day. He was very involved. And then he went back to LA, and then he came back like for the end. So he was there for that scene that I mentioned in the hayloft, and and kind of for those action sequences in the end, the showdown between Leslie and Taylor. So he was he was definitely he wasn't there all the time, but I think that he was there when we really needed him, and he was always available to us if we had like a script question or like an issue. He was always he was really collaborative. I loved working with him, and he loves the genre and he loves the process the same way that Scotty does. So he was also a great energy, on set, and even when he wasn't on set, just the power of his script and also just his availability to us. Like if we ever had a question, he was like on the phone, just like he was right there the whole time.
That's really good though, because like Nathan said, that's not something that really happens, and some stuff just doesn't work on film like it does on paper.
Well, you don't usually want like the writer, because we can be a pain in the ass if you're not getting what we saw. Like what we saw, because like, and I know what, like I know the first movie I didn't direct, that I wrote, and I there were scenes I wanted to be there for. I was like, I want to see this scene, because when you do see it out, because you've imagined it, you see it playing out, it's really exciting to actually see it coming in front of you.
Yeah.
But David, I was able to read one of his other scripts. He had another slasher script that was really strong. I hope it gets made. But he was just announced he's doing a show called The Hills Have Eyes for You, right?
That's right.
Hills Have Eyes for You.
Yeah, it's like it's like Netflix or something, isn't it? Or
yeah,
it's like a Netflix television series that he's written. The Hills Have Eyes for You. This is a great title.
That sounds great already.
Yeah.
Hillary Joe in the comments asked, how close are the comics to the sequel script?
I had to adapt it from David's script to a comic format, so there were slight changes, but most of it's pretty faithful to the script. There's only like a few little things that don't work in a comic. I mean, comics and film are very alike, but they're also very, very different. So there were transitions I had to change. There's one of my favorite little additions I had was at the party, the after party. If people don't know, the movie is a movie within a movie. They're making a movie about the events of the first movie, and it's the wrap party, and everybody's in this hotel lobby, and there's no dialogue in the scene. So I just had to this big splash page of this big lobby party scene. People were sitting around, cast and crew, or hanging out and drinking and partying. And I'm like, well, I gotta have something here. So I started putting these little word bubbles of people talking, and just knowing how it is on film sets, it's like just shit talking the director and shit talking the film, and like yeah, when I make my movie, so I like put all that stuff. So other than that, I think there's only one other scene that I kind of improvised where it's a scene where you're all are in. I think it's when Leslie first returns.
Mm.
He's in your hotel room,
Yeah.
and you have a conversation, and it cuts to the next day. The next scene was Holleran's in your hotel room, and you're talking to him. I
Yeah.
said, well, that's kind of like a night day scene, jump in the same location. So I kind of need to break it up. So I added the scene where um, Ben's character, it's Doug, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Doug is like in the down in the lobby getting breakfast for everybody. That was my little audition. So he's got like all these plates of bacon and eggs and pancakes, and he comes in, and the whole time Leslie's stealing stuff off his plate as he's talking, and Ben's like trying to keep it away from him. That was just my way of transitioning from from night to day
Did
to
we?
get back to that.
It's so funny that you created that, because when we were shooting, the hotel where we were staying had like a breakfast in the morning in the lobby, and we were shooting nights, and we would always roll up on the breakfast after shooting all night and probably looking like something had happened. I don't know, like we were always muddy or like dirty. Nathan would have like his face makeup smeared, and like, and we would hit the lobby breakfast. So that's funny that you
Yeah, I was like, I told Dave, like, I got to do something here because it goes from night to day in the same location, and all of a sudden there's different characters. So, and there's no windows. I can't show that this the time of it. So I was like, well, let me think of something. And then I just, again, if you've stayed in hotel rooms, you know that you got that breakfast. It's like doing conventions or films or whatever. And I was like, that would be funny, and I could have Leslie trying to steal it from Ben and not wanting him to take his bacon. And so like even conversations are going on. You see Leslie in the background reaching over his plate and pulling away.
it's very true to life, true to character, for sure.
You guys ready to wrap her up, or?
Yeah, going back to what I said with Nathan, I mean, you've done a whole lot of work, and is there something in particular that you're especially fond of and proud of that you would steer your fans and fans of Leslie Vernon toward?
Um, I, I, I did. I mean, I'm not sure. The thing that came first to mind, I'm not sure if anyone can find it.
Mm-hmm.
There were two that came to mind that I don't know if anyone could find these, but just for the sake of saying them out loud again, I was lucky enough to be on a TV series created by David Kelly called The Brotherhood of Poland, New Hampshire, and we ran only not quite a full season, but the writing on it was phenomenal. It was an amazing cast. The late Chris Penn played my dad. Randy Quaid, Annie Cusack, Mayor Winningham, Elizabeth McGovern, just an amazing cast. Megan Henning, and just great writing. I guess it's not really, again, something that people could find anywhere, but Nathan brought up the TV series that he did, which he was brilliant on. I watched it, and just like to close out by saying, that the things that like last on TV are not always like the things that kind of spark your creative heart the most. That's been my experience anyway. And so I just loved being a part of that. And it's a good tie-in to Behind the Mask because, it wasn't a big budget movie. It didn't, sell out, theaters across the country, but like, it was an incredible thing to work on. And it was a cast of brilliant actors, speaking amazing dialogue, directed by, a joyful, smart, awesome dude. So anyway.
Well, again, it was a pleasure to draw you as well, the comic, and to carry that, like, and to hang out with you. And it's so good to see you again and talk to you. And I was
Likewise.
excited that you were coming on. Our sending thoughts out to Ray. Ray had to bow out. He had kind of a family emergency. So, and Seth was not with us tonight as well. But
I love what you guys do, and keep doing it. And thank you for thinking of me, and for inviting me to be a part of your good vibes.
Thank
Well,
you
one
for
thing,
coming on.
yeah, what I was gonna say, Angela, like, it's one of the most underrated horror movies of all time. It literally is. We all love it, like, but it literally is one of the most underrated horror movies of all time.
Wow.
I would tend to agree. I think most people who did watch it really do like it a lot. And again, like I said, along with the script, and as you said, Scott's enthusiasm. As you were talking about, that's how he is. He's like infectious, and I think that spills over into the film. And just the professionalism of his choices in you and Nathan, and the people he surrounded you with, from Scott to Robert and everyone. It's a magical little film, I think. It's obviously a low budget work, but the talent involved isn't small, and
Not at all. Not at all.
and so it was great to have you on. Great to talk to you again, and thank you for everyone tuning in tonight. I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up for the night. Ray usually does the closing stuff, so I'm out of my element here. But
Very good.
Yeah.
Everybody, just don't forget to follow us on Facebook, subscribe to the YouTube. It goes up on there afterwards, if that way you can share it. And we got other stuff on there. Ray does movie reviews, and I do toy reviews, and Seth does TV show and script reviews. So all that fun stuff's on there. Thank you for joining us, and everybody have a good night.
Good night, guys.
Thank you, Angela. You're such a sweetheart.